Okay, so we're here to talk about the basics of biblical research. So you're in seminary, you're going to have lots of different kinds of assignments, exegetical papers, Bible talks, sermons, maybe all kinds of things where you'll be using the Bible as your text. And so it's really important to understand some of the tools that the library has available to you to do research about the Bible as you do that study. So one of the key resources that you'll be consulting is commentaries. And there are lots of commentaries written that are out there by many different authors, many different scholars. Some commentaries cover the entire Bible. Those are probably not the ones that you'll find most helpful for your work. Then there are many that cover just a single book of the Bible or maybe a couple books of the Bible. And there's lots of those out there. And so it can be a daunting task to figure out which are the ones that you should be consulting. So we have some tools to help you out with that. We have these published commentary guides that are out there. D.A. Carson has done a New Testament commentary survey. The companion volume by Tremper Longman is also out there. And these are helpful tools. D.A. Carson has kind of a more prose style. He writes in paragraphs, and he just gives you some information about, oh, here's this commentary, and here are its strengths, and this one's the cream of the crop, and this one is a little flawed in this way. Tremper Longman gives you kind of more annotated bibliography style, where he lists just kind of the most significant commentaries or most noteworthy on each book of the Bible, and gives you a little, couple sentence summary of what makes it valuable or not. And then the third one there, Guide to Biblical Commentaries and Reference Works by John Evans. He's an alumnus of Covenant, and he is very thorough. He covers the entire Bible, and he has listed in there probably not every commentary, but it seems pretty close to it. And sometimes he gives you a whole paragraph, sometimes just a couple sentences, even just to say, hey, I haven't really spent a lot of time with this one. But all these are great resources to have, highly recommended, great options to add to your personal library and to help you. Now, the first two, D.A. Carson and Tremper Longman, we do have an ebook format. So if you search our catalog for those, you'll turn those up. The Guide to Biblical Commentaries by John Evans, we have the previous edition as a PDF mounted in our catalog, but we have not yet been able to get the rights to get an ebook for the most recent edition. But I think you can find it pretty affordable on Amazon as in Kindle download, so I'd highly recommend getting that if you want that. But the library has our own commentary guide on our website, and we're going to spend some time looking at that. And so that is at covenantseminary.edu/library/commentaries. And I'm going to go to that right now. Let me bring up my web browser. There we go. So here I am on the library homepage, covenantseminary.edu/library. And if I scroll down to the featured guides, we get our citation guides, and here's our commentary guide linked right here. And then this just goes book by book of the Bible. We start out with some general recommendations. We highlight some recommended commentary series. We have a guide to non-Western commentaries that's in our library collection. So this can give you an idea of some of the non-Western perspectives that are available out there. But then we get into the Old Testament followed by the New Testament. And today we're going to look at Leviticus. So let me click on Leviticus. And we give you a list about the 10 most significant commentaries, in our opinion, that are out there, and these are really good resources to use. And so if we click through, say, J. Sklar's Leviticus commentary, our illustrious Old Testament professor and vice president. So we'll go into our catalog, and you see here's our print record, and then we also have that as an ebook. So I can click through into that record and go into the ebook. And if at any point I'm going too fast, you need me to slow down or repeat something, go back and do it again. Just give me, go ahead and turn on your mic and say so, or type it into the chat and I can repeat anything I do. I know sometimes I go a little fast. But anyway, here's our ebook. Now there's a couple things you should note about the ebook record. So right here, there's some information about the ebook. So one is publisher permissions. What is the publisher going to let you do with this ebook? And the thing to pay attention here is the print email save, 100 pages. So I can save or print, save as an unencrypted PDF up to 100 pages from this book that I can just get a PDF and I can hang on to that forever. The other thing to note is the ebook availability. So this tells you how many ebook copies we have, which is how many people can use it at one time. This one is unlimited, so you can all pile in here and look at this commentary at the same time. Doesn't matter, I'll let you all in. Some of ours are limited to one person at a time, so let's say one copy, or maybe 3 people at a time and say 3 copies. So just pay attention to that. So that gives you a sense of its availability for now and the future. So we have a couple options to use this ebook. So I can use it online, just like I am here, and that's the subject to this ebook availability. If this was a one user copy of this ebook, someone else was looking at this, I would not be able to look at it at the same time. But subject to that availability, I can use it just online like this, and I can use the, jump into, any section of the commentary and read away. The second option I'll highlight is you see these little download buttons next to each of the entries in the table of contents. So I can download, subject to these publisher permissions, one chapter. So if I was working on this section on the Day of Atonement, I can click that download chapter button and select that I want chapter 4, those 9 pages, and download that PDF. And then lastly, I can download the entire book, and that's up here. So I can check out and download the book. Now, once I download it and check it out, I can also view it online, and that kind of guarantees that I have access to that book for up to 2 weeks. However, to do this, you do need to create an account with EBSCOhost, the provider of these ebooks, the host that we use for them. And then you'll need special software, Adobe Digital Editions on a laptop or desktop, or some other authorized software on a mobile device in order to view that downloaded file. But again, even if you click download, once you check it out, you can go into your EBSCOhost account and view it online at any time. That gives you guaranteed access. If you want to learn more about that, in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a workshop specifically about ebooks and how to use them, and we'll walk you through how to get set up to check out and download ebooks in that workshop. So look for that. So do you have any questions about accessing ebooks or finding ebooks for commentaries? If not, I'm going to close out this ebook, close out that catalog record, and I'm going to talk about some other ways to get books. Because we don't have ebooks for all of these, so you may find that you need to get commentaries through other means. So let's talk about how you can do that. So I'm going to go back to the library homepage, and I'm going to click on Guides and Help. Now if I scroll down to the reference section, there's a guide here for online and DMin students. And we have a section on how do you get books as an online student. So there we go. So one way is through interlibrary loan. So with interlibrary loan, you're going to work through your local public library. This is a free or low-cost service, and your local public library can get books from other libraries on your behalf. This can take some time, so do allow some time. Now, when we do it here, we say allow up to 2 weeks. Other places may quote longer time, so check with your library to see what they recommend. and see what their procedures are for requesting an interlibrary loan. Every library is going to be a little bit different in how they process those requests and how you submit them. We recommend that you talk to your reference librarian. They're probably going to be the most knowledgeable person at your public library about how interlibrary loan works. The other option you have is to use one of our reciprocal borrowing networks. So we're a member of two networks, the ATLA, the American Theological Library Association, and the Association of Christian Librarians. Both operate these reciprocal borrowing networks, where if you're near one of the participating institutions, you can go in and check out books as a Covenant student. So if I scroll down here, using a local seminary college library on this guide, and we have maps. There you can see all the locations where you can go to get this access. There's ATLA, there's ACL. So see if there's a library near you that you can use. Lastly, if you happen to live in or around Missouri, Tulsa, Oklahoma, maybe up in Iowa or down in Texas, you can access the Mobius network that we're a part of. And if you want to know more about how to do that, please contact me and I can get you set up. Or make sure you're set up to do that. And so you can request books through the Mobius system to be delivered to any of those libraries highlighted there. So next, let me go back to the library homepage. So we talked about ebooks and how you can get books through print books through other means. But what you don't always have time to wait. So how can you see what we have available right now besides what we have on our commentary guide if you just need to get something for your paper? So on our library homepage, one of the other catalogs listed down here is ebooks. So I can click through to there and type in, for example, Leviticus commentary. And we can see what comes up. And so we have 9 results there. There's J. Sklar's, but there's other ones here, Asia Bible Commentary, Teach the Text. So a number of different sources you can use. And again, these were all the same as that Leviticus commentary from J. Sklar that I showed you. Now, around this time, we usually get the question, well, what about study Bibles? And well, I have to tell you that, unfortunately, study Bibles aren't really considered an academic source. So your professors aren't going to really want to see those cited in your paper. Instead, what you should do is look for a full commentary by the study note contributor. So in the ESV Study Bible, if you look in the front, under the list of contributors, you would see that J. Sklar did the Leviticus study notes in the ESV Study Bible. And so you should go to his commentary instead as the source to cite. And hopefully, if he makes a point in the study notes, he hopefully makes that same point in his commentary and you can quote him there. And that's going to be a better source for your paper. So that's all I have to say about commentaries for tonight. So next, I want to talk about journal articles. Feel free to jump in if you have any questions. So let's talk about journal articles. So where do you go to find scholarly articles about the Bible? So there are a few places that we have. We have 4 main databases. The ATLA Religion Database is going to be the one that you're probably going to use maybe 99% of the time. That's the big one, that's the major one, and it's a really great database. We also have New Testament abstracts and Old Testament abstracts, and then religious and theological abstracts. Now we have these 4 because they all contribute something unique. They have a lot of overlap, but each one indexes certain material that the others don't. So for our students that need to be exhaustive in their research, they need to use multiple databases. Most of the time, you can probably just use ATLA religion database and you'll be good. But it's always nice to be able to supplement your searches in one of these other sources to make sure that you've got your ground covered. Now these databases are nice because they all support being able to search by a scripture citation. So you can plug in your search, the passage that you're working on and do a search that way. Unfortunately, it's not always that easy. So we're going to talk about how you go about doing that. So I'm going to pop back over to our website. So back to the library homepage, and I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to scroll down to this blue section, Journal Articles Databases, click View Databases. And this is going to give me a list of all the databases that you have access to as a Covenant student. There's about 60 or so databases in this list, all kinds of different topics. But for tonight, I'm going to hone in on the religion and theology databases. And there you see right there at the top, ATLA religion, followed by the other ones that I mentioned, and then some other minor databases in this area. So let's go into ATLA religion. So I'll just click on that. Now, with you being off campus, right there before you see this screen, once you click on the database, you'll be prompted to log in. So you just type in your name and your ID number. If you don't know your ID number, feel free to contact me and I can show you how to find your ID number so you can get in. So the problem with doing a scripture citation search is that the computer isn't really good about handling verse ranges. It doesn't quite get that, say, verse 2 is included in 1 through 10. So there's some ways you can go about honing in on the search that you need to do, and I'm going to show you 2 strategies to do that. So first, the quickest option, the scriptures button right up here. You see that, where it says scriptures at the top? So that looks very promising. So let's click on that. And so you see it gives me a list of the books of the Bible, including the Apocrypha. And I can expand, say Genesis to see the chapters, and click expand again next to say chapter 1. Click right there on expand to see the verses, and then I can choose verse 2. And it's going to do my search. And so this is going to hopefully find any article that talks about verse 2 or any verse range that includes verse 2. Now, of course, the weakness here is that, well, I was only able to choose one verse, a single verse, or if I had clicked Genesis 1 a step earlier, I could do a search on the entire chapter of Genesis 1. But often when you're doing biblical research, you're working with a passage, maybe 10 verses, part of a chapter. And so this search may not be the most helpful in that case. So the second option, instead of clicking on scriptures over here, go a couple links over to more and click on indexes. So you click on indexes, and then where it says browse an index here, I'm going to select Bible citation. Now I'm going to look at 1 Corinthians tonight, 1 Corinthians 11, hairstyles and head coverings in 1 Corinthians. And I have to type it in this specific way for any book like Corinthians or 1st and 2nd Kings. So first you type in Corinthians. Then you type in a comma and a space. And then in this case, 1 ST. If I was doing 2nd Corinthians, I'd type 2 ND. Then another space and type my chapter number. So 11. And click Browse. And then this is going to show me all the verse ranges that are used by articles in this database. So we've got over here 21 articles about chapter 11. Here's one about chapters 11 through 12, 62 about 11 through 14, and so on. You know, and even into single verses or ranges of verses. So what I need to do at this point is just check off any verse range that looks interesting to me. So if I want to do verses 2 through 16, then I'm going to go look through and find anything that matches that. So I'll skip over all of chapter 11 right now. I'm not looking at the entirety of chapter 11. I might go back later and see what those 21 articles are, but for now I'm going to leave those out. And I'm going to start here. Okay, so verse 1. I don't want to start anything till verse 2, although, okay, 1 through 12, that's a significant portion of my passage, so I'll check that off. Grab 1 through 16 maybe. And then this sorts a little oddly, so it seems to skip over 2, but that's because it's not sorting these numerically, it's sorting them alphabetically, character by character. So 10, because it starts with a 1, comes after 1 and before 2. So the 2, verse 2 will show up after we get through all the teens. So I'll hit verse 10, 11, 11 through 12, and so on. Just go down through the teens here. So we'll skip that one, don't need verse 17. Go to the next page. So again, 17, 18, 19, and then like I said, after the teens, there's 2. So verse 2, 2 through 10, and so on. Just checking off anything that matches up with 2 through 16, in part or in whole. Okay, so now we're into the 20s, so we won't get to verse 3 until we're past the 20s. That's all 20s, 29, there's verse 3. So it takes a little bit of time and a little patience to sort through here. Now there's the 30s, and here's, okay, 4, 5, 6. And we'll keep going down here, 7, 8, 9, and now we're at the chapter 12. So I'll stop there. So I've checked all those off, and then I'm going to come up here and click Add. And this is just going to build a big search. You can see it up here. It looks like a big mess. That is just saying, hey, database, give me all the articles that are about verses 1 through 12, or you know, all the article, you know, any article that's about 1 through 16, or an article about verse 10, and so on. So I'll just click search, and I get my results. Now we have some limiters over here. You know, I have 184 articles, and I can do some things to limit my search. So I can go to language. If I only read English, I can check off English. If I also know German, I can check off both. I'm just an English speaker, so I will limit to the English articles. That brings my count down a little bit. And then I get my results. So here's my article title. I get the author. Here's the journal title. So this is an article in English published in a Korean journal. Issue information, etc. And then you'll see in a number of results these PDF icons showing up. So I can click that and get the PDF of this article right here in the database. And I can print that, I can save that, and keep that for my personal use. Now, not everything has a PDF. So, you know, here's one that doesn't. So in that case, you should click Find Full Text at Covenant. And this is a service that'll go out and see if this article is available in another database, in our print collection, we're in a free online collection that we know about. And so this can find things elsewhere. And so in this case, this is in our print collection. Now, if you're not here in St. Louis, you may think, well, that doesn't help me a whole lot. But what you can do is you can, for this, or if it says nothing shows up, click Request an Interlibrary Loan. I'm going to type in my, my test account. And so this is so it sent the article information through to the request form. It filled out the form for me. Now, if you're in a situation where you see that we have it in print, now unfortunately I don't have my test account set up as an online student, but as an online student you would see a checkbox that basically says, hey, I know the Covenant Library has this in print, I'm requesting a copy of that from the Covenant print collection. That just helps us process your request a little more efficiently. But regardless, whether it's in our print collection or it's not available online, send it through to the ILL form and submit your request. And our library staff will go to work acquiring that article for you and sending it to you by email, whether from our print collection or from another library. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm not going to put that through. But again, click that Find Full Text whenever you don't see a PDF to check to see if it's available in another online source or to get access to that ILL request form and get a copy emailed to you. It takes about up to a week, usually a couple days at least. Sometimes it can take up to a week, but we can usually turn those around pretty quickly. So the next thing I want to highlight is that the ATLA Religion Database doesn't just index journal articles. So if you look down on the limiter column here, one of these source types listed is essay. So I can click that, and these are essays published in books. So they're kind of short form article length writings, but instead of being published in a journal, they've been collected together by an editor and published as a book. Often you'll see, it's a book in honor of some scholar. Someone who's been influential in the field is ending their career or soon to be retired, and a bunch of their colleagues get together and publish a book in that person's honor. And so the ATLA Religion Database indexes that content at that article or essay level. Now the tricky thing is that the database puts this periodical icon there, which is misleading because this is not a periodical. The tell is right here where it says publication type essay. And so in that case, don't expect to find a PDF of this. This is not in a journal. This is a chapter in a book. But you know what? You can still request that through that interlibrary loan form. So click Find Full Text at Covenant. It's not going to find anything. It may find, if we own that book, it may show up in our catalog. Click Request an Interlibrary Loan, and you can request a chapter or essay from a book through this interlibrary loan form. And again, we will get that, whether it's in our print collection or if we have to go to another library, we'll get that scanned in and we'll get that emailed to you. Yeah, uncheck the essay limit there. So a couple more tips about using the databases as you're doing the searching. So you see this little folder, blue folder icon over there. So that can be handy. So that allows you to select items and add them to a folder. So as you go through and you find interesting stuff, you can add those to an online folder. And if you sign in, create a EBSCOhost account and sign in, then you can save that folder between sessions. You can log in at any time, see what you've saved previously. You can organize the things that you save into subfolders. But even without that, you can just go to your folder view, see what you've saved, and then you can email that to yourself. So this is a great way to kind of collect your research, collect your information for your citations or bibliography. You can click that email button, pop in your email address. You can tell it whether or not you want the database to send any attached PDFs attached to your email. So when there's that full text in the database, it can send that PDF to you, and then you can tell it how you want the citation information. If you just want the whole record sent to you, or if you want the computer to try and put that into a Turabian citation format for you. It's not perfect by a long shot, but it can at least give you a place to get started with your citation. And so you can send that to yourself by email and collect your, keep track of your research that way. So again, jump in with any questions that you have at any time, but otherwise I'm going to move on because there's one more thing that I wanted to show you about journal articles. So I'm going to go back to the library homepage. And so as you're doing your research, you may find a journal article cited in a commentary or in the footnotes of another article that you're reading. And maybe you'll think, I wish I could see that. Do I have access to that? The easiest way to answer that question is to go to the library homepage. Under Other Catalogs here, click on Journals List. And this is a searchable list of all the journals that we have access to in any way. So if you found a reference to Catholic Biblical Quarterly, you can type in that journal title. No, you have to type in the journal title, not the article title. You want the journal title. And I can search our holdings of that journal. Sometimes it takes a minute or a few seconds. And then this is going to show me all the places I can go to get access to that content. So Catholic Biblical Quarterly, the ATLA Religion Database, has that from 1939 to current. And we have a few other databases that only go back to 1990. But I can click through on there to go in to that journal and browse the issues. If I was looking for something from 2010, say issue 1, I can go in there and get a listing of all the articles in that issue and find the article that I'm looking for. And there's my PDFs right there. So that's another way that you can get access to the scholarship. Okay, so that's finding commentaries, finding journal articles. And so now I want to talk a little bit about evaluation of this material. So we'll start with identifying academic sources. What counts as an academic source? So here's 2 publications put out by Covenant Seminary, Covenant Magazine and Presbyterion. So which of these is an academic source? So hopefully you would say Presbyterion, because that's the right answer. But how can you tell? Just by looking at something, as you come up with a PDF in a database, and you're like, is this academic or not? Well, what are the differences between these 2 publications? Well, maybe the inside of Covenant Magazine looks a little flashier. It's got pictures, maybe a little fancier typography. What is the tone of the writing? Who it seems to be the intended audience? And the thing I like to ask, how many footnotes do you see in an issue of Covenant Magazine? Probably 0, maybe 1 occasionally. How many footnotes do you see in an issue of Presbyterion? A lot. Because that's the style of writing, that's the style of academic writing. Now, what about peer review? You may have heard this term thrown around. So peer review is a process whereby an article, before it is published in a journal, is approved by 1 or more experts in the field. So an author submits his article to a journal. The editor says, hey, this looks pretty good to me. Let me send it out to some other scholars. They review the article, usually anonymously, and check to see, okay, is this good research? Is there a good methodology? Is there good reasoning? Is it written well? Is this worthy of being published in the journal? So it's a way of ensuring quality. Now, it's not perfect. You often hear stories in the news about failures in the peer review process, how, someone slipped something in that wasn't that good and tricked everybody. So you do have to be conscious, even when something is marked as peer reviewed, that you do have to have your critical thinking hats on and be engaging with the material critically. So a peer review, often in the database, you'll see a limiter option where you can limit your results to peer-reviewed articles. And so that's something you can choose to check to limit to that. Now be aware that Presbyterion, for example, is not considered peer-reviewed. It has more of what you might call an editorial review process. That's not a full peer review process, so the database does not mark articles from Presbyterion as peer-reviewed. So if you check that checkbox, you're going to eliminate lots of writings by Jack Collins and our other Covenant faculty, perhaps even your professor. So just use that wisely. So books, which is an academic source here. So we have 2 books on Christian spirituality: Blue Like Jazz, Non-Religious Thoughts on Christian Spirituality, and then Christian Spirituality, 5 Views of Sanctification. So a lot of what we said about Covenant Magazine versus Presbyterion applies here. What is the tone of the writing? How many footnotes do you see? What do you see any hallmarks of academic discourse? Christian Spirituality, 5 Views has 5 different scholars interacting with one another. Their credentials are very prominent, and it has a very different tone than Donald Miller's book. So let's get more into evaluating now. So you've limited to just the academic resources. Now, how do you know which of those is good? So for that, we're going to turn to the CRAP test from California State University. It's an acronym. And so currency, the C. So that's the first question. When was it published and how important is that to you? So if you're doing something in maybe something related to counseling or psychology, something like that, currency is going to be really, really important. So you may want to use a database limiter to limit by date and limit to maybe the past 5 years or at most 10 years of material. Biblical studies, theology, on the other hand, sometimes it's currency is important, but theology tends to be a little more timeless. We still read John Calvin. So how important is it that the research is current? R, relevance. So this is the question of how does this item relate to your research? Who is the intended audience of that item? Like we asked before, who is this written for? And is it written at an appropriate level for graduate research? Authority. So this is the question of who produced this information, who produced this article or this book, who's the author, what are their credentials, where did they study, where did they teach, why are they a qualified expert to speak to your research question? Accuracy. Where is the author getting their information? Who are they citing? What supporting evidence are they providing in their argument? If it's an article, has it been peer reviewed? Are there errors that you can recognize? And lastly, purpose. And this can be a really key question, particularly when looking at web resources, asking, why does this thing even exist? Why did someone put this out there? What are they trying to convince you of or sell you, ideologically wise? Is this fact? Is it opinion? Is it propaganda? Is it objective and impartial, or at least attempting to be objective and impartial? Or is there bias evident? So these are some important questions to consider. And then lastly, since we're in seminary, we also have to look at theological perspective. Where is this author coming from theologically? This can be a hard question to answer, but there's some places you can go to. thinking specifically about books, examine key parts of books. Look at the table of contents for, how is the author structuring their argument or their discussion? What does that tell you about where they come from? Look at prefaces, introductions, conclusions. Prefaces can be somewhat handy because that often is where the author talks about why they were motivated to write about this topic, what their background is maybe, and so that can be very useful. Bibliographies, you can look at, who are the people they tend to cite more than others, and indexes, you can look for key terminology that may hint at their framework, their theological framework. You can look for reviews. So go into the ATLA religion database, type in the name of the book into the search field, then before you click search, scroll down and find those source type limiters, and one of them is review. So you can limit your search to just book reviews. And then you can see what the reviewers are saying about that book and where the author is coming from. Look at the publisher's website to see what kinds of books that publisher puts out. Are they a Methodist publisher, a Catholic publisher? Are they broadly evangelical? So that can help. And then ask a librarian. We aren't going to know off the top of our heads for every author. Probably for many authors we won't know, but we can help you sleuth out those details and help you find an answer. So with that, that's the end of the presentation. So I'll open it up for any questions.